Justin, because I think he's one of the coolest athletes right there. I think he just has it like all together in terms of the emotional, social, spiritual. I see their family at church like all the time. They have the Bianca School of Baseball, and he graduated from Peters Township in 2011. He was one of our most successful baseball athletes in this area, and still holds that position here. He got a full scholarship to the University of Pittsburgh. He was drafted in the third round pick by the Diamondbacks. He played for 4 years.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
For them? And he's here to talk to you about the good, the bad, the ugly, the adversity, and everything about being in that position as a minor league baseball player. So I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks. So to kick it off, there's three main things that we're going to talk about today. The first one was pregame routine. We're going to talk about that a little bit to help you out, give you like just my 2 cents on that. And it's probably something different than what you're doing now. I'm willing to bet that. Second one is fear of failure, and kind of like figuring out what does failure really mean, in the long run. What's the benefit of it? What's the downside of it? And then the last one was like life after sports. Because look, everyone here is going to come to a point in time where your sport's done with. It doesn't matter how good you are. Like for me, I was a third round draft pick. Sports were done after like 4 years after I was drafted. That wasn't my plan. I wanted to go play in the majors for the rest of my career. That was my plan. Did it happen? No. That's the reality of it sometimes. But even if I did play in the majors for 10 years and that was my dream, then at some point, it's the same thing. Whether I played for 4 years, 10 years, there's always going to be a point where you got to turn the page to what's next in life. Like life as an athlete it's a short window. It really is. And I'm telling you, even for the most successful people, like they have a great career. Okay, they're in their 30s, career's over. What are you going to do for the next 30 years? You're like still middle point of your life for most of us, God willing. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit because I think it's really important. We'll start up with the pregame routine. Here's what I want to kick it off with. I think a huge myth is this. If you want to have a great routine, you've got to be doing a certain amount of things to get yourself into like the best mindset or framework before game time. And what I've found is this. It's not so much the things that you're doing, it's the space that you're trying to tap into. Okay? It's not the things that you're doing, it's the space we're trying to tap into mentally. We're trying to shift our mental environment. And case in point is this. Does everyone have the same pre-game routine? No. This person has that. This person has this. They're all different. And this works good for this person, which might not work good for this person, and so on. So everyone has a different routine that works best for them. So that's just proving that it's not what we're doing. It's not the stretches. It's not the song before the game starts that you're listening to on your headphones. It's not the 3 things you wrote down on your notebook. While all of those are part of the process, okay, they really are part of the process, but it's not so much that. It's the space that mentally you're trying to tap into. Yeah. Like for me, as a baseball player, I got into my best mental space pre-game when I shifted off of the jitters, which everyone has naturally. There's no fighting that. Like you're going to have that. Everyone's human. So there's going to be a point in time where like the butterflies start to arise. And usually the closer you get to game time, the more the butterflies start to build up and creep, right? But when you can shift off of that, okay, like take yourself mentally. You're in that mental space. Your body is feeling that. And now you shift off of that into this new space we're trying to create. And my question for you guys is, what is that? What is your ideal space? What's the ideal environment that you play in? For me, it was 3 things. I was always trying to feel loose before game time. I wanted to be aggressive in my playing style. And I wanted to be able to feel free, meaning I could freely play the game with nothing being held back, with zero thought of messing something up, with zero hesitation, with decisiveness. So I want to play the game loose, free, and aggressive. Like those are my 3 things. So I'm shifting off of that mental space of being nervous, having jitters, having fear of failure into a new mental space. And now the things that I do are the tools that I use to allow myself to shift, which can then be the music I like to listen to, the stretches I like to do, the things we need to do as a team, the preparing my body, hydrating, making sure I'm having good nutrition before game time, all of those things, right? Those are the tools. But like that's not the secret sauce. It's just part of the process. So that is like the biggest thing I learned. Honestly, I learned that more so after the fact than in the middle of it. It's not like I was like, trust me, I did not have this stuff figured out beforehand. It's like learning after the fact what worked more, what didn't work. So that is like my biggest piece of advice for you guys with the pregame routine. Okay, getting into that new space. Now, I think that's a great one. I think that's one example for sure. We're making the moment bigger than it is. And the one thing that I've noticed when you watch like the biggest events, biggest sporting events in the world, Super Bowl, for example, just happened not too long ago. Biggest sporting event in the world. Most people watch it. Most of those guys, especially like the quarterbacks, the people at the important positions, the ones that get there and succeed, the moment is never too big for them. It's never too big for them. And it doesn't mean they always succeed. Patrick Mahomes, for example, he got dominated this last Super Bowl, but he's already won 3 or 4 of them, right? So the moment's not too big for him. Doesn't mean he's always going to be like perfect with his performance. But when the moment isn't too big for you, I am of the firm belief that it's because you've created a mental space, environment, state of confidence, belief in yourself, that it does not matter who you're playing against. You can compete against anybody in your region, in your state, in your country, in the world, and it has nothing to do with what you can control. And so what I've learned is when they can really just lock in on what they can control, they can live with any result because they know their result will be the absolute best it can be when they just focus on what they can control. You guys with me there? And you have to commit to that. You got to be all in on just locking in on what you know you're capable of, what you can control. Give you an example for me as a baseball player. And baseball players, you guys know this is really, really hard to control what you can control and not let the outside things bother you. For example, you could have the absolute hardest hit in the world. It could be a line drive right to center field, you're out, right? You do that every time you're batting 0 batting average, but you've done everything you can in your control. We all know that's not going to be the case. Nobody's going to line out to center field every time, but just case in point, right? But when you can trust the process, like so again, for me as like a hitter, and you guys can relate this to your sport, not rocket science or anything, but like my job as a hitter was always hard contact. Hit the ball hard twice. I know there's 9 fielders out there. I know there's going to be times I hit it to a fielder and I'm going to get out. But I also know there's like several hits throughout the season I don't hit real well that I get lucky and they find a hole. It all evens out in the wash. And I think in all of our sports, there are things that even out in the wash. We get lucky, we face an easy opponent and we win. We get unlucky, we face a tough opponent, even compete really well, and we lose. Right? It's going to even out in the wash. I think so many times we think we're a victim when, that guy was just, I faced the best guy in the country, or that was the best team, highest ranked in the state, or whatever. What about all those other ones that weren't so tough, right? And so we like to weed out the tough ones and let those stand out, and then we don't always look at it objectively as a whole. I think that's something that we're all guilty of, athletes. I know I was, for sure. But again, like locking in on what you can control. And think about that. What are the things that before game time, if you say, if I just really do my absolute best, give my absolute best effort on these 1, 2, or 3 things, I know I'll have the best chance for the best outcome, right? Again, I talked about me as a hitter. It's hitting the ball hard. It's having a quality at bat. And I talked about with, you guys know quality at bats probably. You guys work on that at all, right? Like a quality at bat isn't just a base hit. It could be a walk, moving a runner over, sacrifice fly, stuff like that. Think about, for whatever sport you're in, think about, again, just a quality rep, right? Like regardless of the outcome, right? Like sprinters, whatever. Let's say you're really giving your all and having quality form. And again, this could be, I know we got track, we got baseball, we got, what else do we have, by the way? Because I didn't get a chance to talk. Do we have any wrestlers? Okay. What else am I missing? Football? Okay. What else? Swimming? Yes. Oh, I talked to a swimmer. What else? Lacrosse. Any other sports? Golf. Okay, golf. Huge mental sport, right? Golf is very similar to baseball as far as the mental side. Anything else? Quality rep. Okay, lacrosse. Are you have a quality maybe throw or quality? Like I think this is also what relates to quality, in my opinion. Doing your job and being true to your responsibilities per your position. Doesn't every position here have responsibilities they have to do? And they're all different, right? If I'm a golfer and I know who I am as a player, whether I am good at hitting the ball long or good at hitting the ball straight and accurate, or I'm a good putter or a good chipper, like I think everyone has strengths and tendencies. Am I true to my identity as a player? Football, what position do you play? O-line, right? What your responsibilities, right? Offense, use offensive line. Protecting the quarterback, right? Not letting your guy get by you. So you have these lists of responsibilities. Swimmers, I think, how important is form? It's like probably the most important thing, right? And I'm not a swimmer, but like just, right? So like if you're staying locked in and focused on what you can control, maybe form being one of them, and then letting the results take care of themselves, not worrying about the people you're racing against. It's you versus you. Again, it's the same thing for every position. It's you versus you. And look, it's easier said than done, right? Obviously, it's easier said than done, but you have to commit to it, okay? When you commit to it, right, and we talk about like pregame, you get yourself into a mental environment where now you're committing to not only how you're trying to feel, you're committing to your actual strategy. Man, now you got two things working on two ends of the spectrum in your favor to give you the best chance for the best possible outcome. Right? But again, when you do that, so pregame is very important. When you do that, you shift yourself mentally into that space. You're playing actually a game within a game. You're not playing the game in front of you as much as you think you are. You're playing a game within a game. And that's, I think, where elite levels really succeed. They're playing the game within the game. They're not so distracted by the score. They're not so distracted by how much time's on the clock. They're not so distracted by who's watching them that day. Whether it be nobody, whether it be 10 of their friends or family members, right? They're playing the game within the game. All that outside stuff is just a big blur, right? You guys ever see like on a Zoom call, right? You have your picture and you can press that button, blur background. That's what you're doing. You're blurring the background. Blur the background as an athlete. So I think that's, again, just 3 sections today. Summarizing the first section, pregame, and controlling what you can control. I think that's huge. So would you agree it's still important to stay true to the game plan and strategy? So like for me, and it was the same thing, for me as a hitter, I'd have a game plan of what I wanted to do. And that would vary, but like let's say I'm going in against a fast pitcher. My biggest thing and this was like so related to me when I went to pro ball. I was in high school facing guys throwing low 80s, went to pro ball right away. And like I flew out on an airplane to go to play ball in Missoula, Montana a week after I graduated high school and was playing games every day. I was facing guys throwing 90 to 94. And the fastball was a big adjustment for me. It was hard for me to catch up to the fastball consistently and actually get a hit. So my thing was I needed to catch a fastball out in front and visualize it making contact way more out front than normal. Just that one thing. So like everyone has kind of their one thing. And so when I was on deck, the thing that worked best for me was a combination of the two. It was deep breath, okay, breathe, I'm loose, I'm relaxed. The moment's not too big for me, I'm taking my practice swings. And then I'm rehearsing, okay, what's my strategy? Oh, all right, now I remember catch the ball in front. And now I'm walking up to the plate, it's the same thing, okay, deep breath, get back to loose, free, aggressive. So I'm bouncing back and forth. And again, I'm attacking it from both angles. I'm letting my body not be overwhelmed, okay? I'm breathing, I'm staying loose, but I'm reminding myself the strategy. And again, I don't have to go back and forth a million times, but if I just that simple loose, strategy, loose, and you combine the two, because it's probably, here's what happens too. We get in the heat of the moment and we do want to just trust our reactionary like movements and stuff, but like if sometimes if our mind loses focus on what the game plan is, it's not going to help us. So maybe sometimes, and again, I could be totally wrong. Maybe for you, it's forgetting the fact that, hey, I'm going to pace myself on the longer one. And again, when you do that, it's the game within the game. You've now created a framework where you're so focused on that, the strategy, you start to forget about the things that make you nervous. Guys, your mind's can only hold on to so much at one time. Okay? Can only hold on to so much at one time. So the more you shift into a space of focus without any effort whatsoever, the more the nerves start to fade away because your mind's on to something else, right? Thoughts are sticky in our brain. They stick. Okay? But there's only so much that sticks at once. When a new thing sticks, something else falls off. So again, that's what I found to be very, very beneficial is like I didn't relieve nerves by saying to myself, don't be nervous, don't be nervous, don't be nervous. I relieve nerves by shifting into a positive, constructive thought of what my job was. So I think that can be helpful. You had one too.
Yeah, you said music is like a tool that helps you get to that space.
Sure, yeah.
What are some other tools that
Yeah, definitely. It would be like on my notes app on my phone, a list of maybe 3 to 5 things, no more, of like what is my strategy and am I trying to do? Exactly what I told you. So I'm staying true to my strategy. Okay. And it usually wasn't too mechanical when I got into game time, especially as a baseball player. If I tried to think too mechanical about my swing, would never help me in the games. That was stuff I had to hammer out in training. So I think for anybody here thinking about their form, like think about it, you're trying to improve your technique with whatever you're doing. Hammer that down in training and practice, but don't let it drive yourself crazy when it's time to perform. Okay? As a golfer, as a runner, as a swimmer, as a football player, or maybe technique with blocking, baseball, okay, whatever it is. So that always helped me better. So again, I have game thoughts, okay? And then I also have practice thoughts. Those are 2 different categories. Practice thoughts meaning technique, what am I fixing? Game thoughts meaning, okay, now what are the things that just, for example, I told you hit the ball out in front. For me as a baseball player, if I wanted to hit the ball out in front, that was me timing up a pitch more. Well, it wasn't actually really mechanical. The mechanical part would be like how I actually move my body in the swing. So music, and again, music's a funny one. Like I exercise now every day. For whatever reason, I don't even listen to music. So like that can come and go. I'm not saying that's like obviously not the end cure all, but if it does help, makes you feel better, get into a flow. I know when I played, if I didn't have music, I just felt a lot more amped up and ready to go with music. Music, for me, the notes app of like actually writing down things. And again, it doesn't have to be on your phone. It could be actually a notebook or whatever. I'm a spiritual person. Like prayer was huge for me. Yeah, I would say like saying pregame prayer every time. And even like throughout. Like I did things when I was on deck. I'd just bless myself real quick before I went to the bat. Like I wasn't trying to like show everyone I was like, that's I just to myself, you know? But again, everyone has their own style of doing it. So like for me, it was like spiritual, game plan, loose, free, and aggressive. Okay, in my mental shift of what I talked about first. And then I will say this, guys, like just to be like real nitty gritty and just like raw about it. Like when I was, and I've been on both ends. I remember being a freshman, sophomore in high school and playing with older players, playing on varsity and being intimidated and not feeling fully confident before game time. And then I remember when I played well when I was a senior, thinking like just to be honest, like I'm not trying to be funny, but like look out, like I'm gonna kill somebody today. Like it's game time. Like if you throw me the ball down the middle, I'm hitting over the fence. Like that kind of confidence. You know what I mean? Like because I knew in my training it was like nobody here has worked harder than me. Nobody here is committed to the mental game like I have, reading 20, 30 minutes every night or listening to something beneficial for my mental game or mental strength or toughness. Or like just committing to the little tiny details of everything that I did. Nobody else is doing this. So when I had like those thoughts, even just subconsciously in the back of my head, walking up to the plate before the at-bat, looking back at the pitcher, staring him in the eye, knowing he did not commit. He didn't have the blood, sweat, or tears that I had. The rest was history. It was absolute history. So like so you got to work hard. There's no doubt about that. Everyone here knows that. But if you do really work hard and commit to it, on the other end of that is a huge ball of confidence that's going to be thrown your way when it's game time. It really will. And so, being the ultimate competitor, like really just being fearless out there and playing with the ultimate competitor's mentality. And even when you are facing somebody that might be better than you, might be more skilled than you, being fearless enough to just lay it all out on the line and care less about the results. And actually in pro ball, it started all over again for me in pro ball because I went from like beginning high school, stages of those not feeling real confident, feeling a little bit more afraid. And then junior, senior, okay, now I'm doing well. Now I'm getting more confidence. And then it just started all over again. Okay, I was an 18-year-old kid playing with all college guys that were 22, 23, 24 years old. And I was 18. Started all over again. Same process. And then later on, started, figuring out some more. So trust me, I have felt both ends of the spectrum 2 rounds before throughout my life for four-year stints at a time, 4 years in high school, 4 years after. So I totally get it. And again, it's not easy, but when I got to pro ball, the less I cared, the better I did. And I don't mean that from a perspective of like not caring, not like actually training. I mean like when it was game time, not caring about the results. Because the more I tried to control the results, that brought 10 times more stress on me. Because if I tried to control the results of getting a hit and I knew I did everything I could and crushed the ball, but it just went to somebody, there's nothing I can do there. You know what I mean? But even when you're feeling nervous, so I talked about like even when you're facing somebody more skilled than you, more talented than you, or at least you think, still being able to say just like, so what? Like I'm bringing it. You know what I mean? And still feeling a little bit afraid before the rep. That's natural. All right? Like you're going to be on the line before the ball snaps. You're going to be in front of the golf ball before it's hit. You're going to be in the batter's box before the pitch is thrown. Wherever you're at, right? You're on the line before the gun shoots off when it's, starts or finishes, right? So you're going to feel the natural nerves a little bit too, but being able to battle and fight that, because if you actually know, guess what? We're all the same. We're all human. I'm not the only one that feels that. That's where we really get stuck. We feel like we're the only ones that feel that, and every single person feels the same thing. So when I started to realize that, hey, I'm a little nervous, but so is everyone else. Screw it. I'm not going to be as nervous because we're all the same. What am I even afraid of if they're afraid of the same thing? And then it shifted into, I actually see you're afraid of me, like pitching the ball, like let's go. And it, like in a sick way, it made me just want to play like harder and harder. And then when I did that, man, as an athlete, and I do believe this is true in any sport, you'll just taste more and more success. And you start to like tap into that mental space. Okay, thinking differently is the biggest thing, though. You got to think differently. Okay, and the reason that all of us here signed up for whatever sport it is that we play today is because at one point in time in the beginning, it was a heck of a lot of fun. It really was. It was an absolute joy to play. So if it was fun, if the only reason I signed up to do this thing in the first place because it was a lot of fun, why am I not tapping into that space of enjoying it more? And realizing that, actually, it's a lot more fun to play when I play in the state of mind of being aggressive, being a competitor, attacking it. That's when it's fun. It's not fun when you just play it casually. It's not fun when you just play it defensively. Like, does that make sense, guys? And you really backtrack for a second. You're kind of like seeing the end first and going back and rewind. It took me a while to figure that out, but it's like, man, okay. Play the game first just because it was fun. It was actually only fun when I played aggressively. And why don't I commit to that a little more? So not to go off on a tangent there, but that just to lay it all out on the line, like again, like sometimes I show up and tell you guys like what I think you should hear, and I think that's important. Sometimes I'll just tell you the honest truth of like what I don't think you hear a lot from coaches, right? Like that's just the truth inside our own heads about I think what really happens. I hope that's helpful a little bit. Does anybody have anything else before we go to the next one? Is this helpful so far, at least? All right, good. All right, the next one was like fear of failure. And by the way, we've already hit on some of these points. But I want to tell you 2 quick stories. All right, 2 quick stories. So there's a guy. He's playing a sport. He's training. He really loves the sport he's playing. Practices on it by himself all the time. And he gets to high school, and he gets to a point where he gets cut. He doesn't make the team. And he's devastated. Like the game he plays is his everything. And he has a decision to make. Because at that point in time in high school, like it's more serious. You start to figure out, everybody here knows, you start to figure out, am I going to do this long term or not? Like everyone here that plays is more of a serious player. They're training every day. And if I want to play, I'm going to have to train every day as well to keep up. So he has a decision to make. Am I going to quit? Is this not for me? Or can I train really hard and prove the coach next year that I'm born to do this? Like I can hang around and do this. So he doesn't quit. He keeps playing. He keeps practicing. He makes the team. makes the varsity team the next year, ends up being a really, really good player. Proves the coach, the rest of the staff, everybody that he's born to be there. Goes on as a collegiate athlete, does really, really well, and has a good college career, and then goes on and is like a first round pick. Okay, and then goes through and has one of the best careers of all time in his sport. And it all comes back to that one decision back in high school of coach basically said, this isn't for me. I can't make the team. Because can we be honest? Like if you don't make the high school team, probably not that good yet. Would you guys agree? Right? Like I think majority of people will make the high school team. And if there's 30 people trying out for a team, and then usually there might be like 5 cuts on average, and probably no more than 10. That means you're in the bottom third at the high school level. This is, like to me, that's like, right? Got a lot more work to do. He never gave up and went on to do. Does anybody know who that was, by the way? Michael Jordan. Yep, exactly. Best basketball player of all time. He really was. Really, it still is. Like most people will consider him to be that. It's that one decision. I mean, he very easily at that point in time could have just said, "All right, I'll try another sport." Right? But like that, the amount of like the lesson of failure there, I think, is one of the strongest lessons of all of like what that can lead to. And I'm a person of faith, so like for me, if it's a no now, it's God telling me there's a better yes moving forward. So I really believe that. If the answer is no now, it's because He's saving something for us better off down the line. He's going to open up a door for us. And so you've got to like life is a maze. There's no straight line path to success. I've really found that. Like there's no. I'm here at point A. I want to get to point B. It's never going to be a straight line, meaning it's never going to be like small success, and all the way till you get there. It's going to be small success, maybe another small success, small failure, big success, little. It's just everything's going to be thrown your way, including all the failures. I'll tell us in as fast as I can. It's for 1 minute. I like to call this the stock market analogy. So you look at a great stock, let's just say Amazon, right? Let's look back 20 years ago when their stock was valued at this. Now they're valued at this, one of the biggest companies in the world. You go back and look at the graph, you zoom out, it's an up and down line of up day, down day, up day, down day. Like just daily. I'm not talking about yearly. Daily, their stock would be up or down. But it's the gradual trend of still working upward over time that allowed them to be one of the best companies in the world. But you look back, you see how many down days where their stock literally was down, meaning it was valued, not like opinion. This is the stat. This is factual. Their company was valued lower that day than it was the day before. You know how many down days? And again, it's the same for any business, company, or even person, right? So you got to kind of look at yourself as a company. Look at yourself as a stock that you're investing in yourself, right? And if you want your investment to grow, and put the work into it. And then that will grow over time. But you've got to understand it's going to be a jagged line of up and down. Never a straight line path to success. You'll never find a stock. You'll never see Apple, Amazon, Netflix, any of the best stocks in the world ever have a straight line path to success. So it's the same thing for us as athletes. Okay, I want to shift into one more story of somebody. And it's about failure as well. And so this person, it's a little different for them. They're in high school. They're on a team. They are the backup on their team. Their team isn't very good. Their team actually loses like every game. And this player wants to be the starter. They're not the starter. And they're thinking, I'm not the starter, and the team also sucks because they don't win a game. And probably not looking real good for him. Goes the next year, it's kind of the same thing. He's playing maybe a little more, but he's still not the starter. And then he gets into like later on in his high school years, and he's spent the last 2 to 3 years working as hard as he can. Finally, his time comes. He gets an opportunity. He becomes the starter. Becomes a starter like as a senior though. Like I don't even think as a junior. Okay, so now he wants to play in college. All right. And not getting any offers. Not getting any offers at all. Reaching out to his coaches to see if they can help him out. And finally, the very, very last minute, he gets an offer to play to a school. But he didn't get many of them. So he gets an offer to a school, And he's now starting as the 7th string at his position. 7th string. He has 6 guys ahead of him. So that's his case as a freshman. That's his case as a sophomore. It's pretty much a repeat of his high school. Okay, where he's having to work up through the depth chart, and the only way to do that is by him working his tail off and proving that he can actually hang. Okay, then he gets to his junior year, and it's the same thing as high school. He finally has a chance to play and start, but he's not starting like every game. He's back and forth with the other person he competes with. And so back and forth, again, doing good. When he gets his chance, he's doing what he needs to do. And like by the end of the season, he actually played a lot better than the guy he was competing with as a junior. So he's thinking, all right, I got this, finally. Working all 4 years of high school. I just did all 3 years of college. 7 years. Think about this. 7 years straight of just competing to get on the field. Right? And like, I know I didn't have to. Probably a lot of us didn't have to go through that. Like 7 years of just competing to get an opportunity to start, to perform instead of sitting on the bench. That's tough. And so finally his senior year, he's thinking, all right, I got this. And season's about to start, and coach says, hey, you guys still are dueling for this position. He did not give it to this person I'm talking about. And so they go back and forth. One guy plays this game, this guy plays another game. And I think it was like the 3rd game of the season, the coach said, all right, this is the game we're deciding it. You get the first half of the game, and then this other guy gets the second half of the game. Whoever plays better in this game is going to start the rest of the season. A lot of pressure. You have one bad half, you're not starting for the rest of your season. That's probably the end of your career. So this person I'm talking about, they go out there, they outduel him, they outperform him. He gets the job, kills it the rest of the season. All right, and they finish up. I think the team doesn't even lose a game the rest of the season when he's in there as a starter. And so now it's the end of his college career, and he's thinking, I actually have a chance to play pro after doing all this. And not only is he thinking that, he's being told this from his agent. His agent comes to him and says, hey, you actually, after everything you just went through, you have the potential to be a 2nd-round draft pick. That's what they're projecting you right now. And so he's thinking, I finally did it. 8 years of an absolute grind. I've finally gotten to a position where I can become pro and even be like a higher draft pick. And the draft comes, and the 1st round hits, doesn't get drafted. 2nd round hits, doesn't get drafted. 3rd round hits, doesn't get drafted. 4th round hits, all right, probably now, because he was supposed to be in the 2nd round. Doesn't get drafted. 5th round hits. Anybody know? Doesn't get drafted. He's at home. He's listening to the draft with his parents. He steps out of his garage. This person wasn't a baseball player, but he used to play when he was younger. He takes his baseball bat, starts walking down his street with his bat, just wanted to get out of the house. Not that he was going to go blow up anybody's mailbox, but he just wanted to get out of the house. And think about it at that point in time, he literally leaves his house, leaves his phone or computer where he was listening to the draft from. And at that point in time, if he does get drafted or not, he wouldn't know. He totally checked out. He at that point in time, he probably didn't even care at that point if he got drafted. You really think about it. And he finally comes back and he figures out he gets drafted in the 6th round. He does get picked up, which is good. Because somebody did actually pick him up. But now that he's a 6th round draft pick, when he goes into training camp, he doesn't have high expectations. He's not valued very high. And at the pro level, if you guys are fans of sports and watch pro sports, any sport at all, your draft stock is really important with you getting a chance or not. Starting up to, if coaches want to see if you have a chance to play or not. And so he's starting out as 4th string again now. Moves his way up through the depth chart, does the whole thing again. But what's important for you guys to understand right now, and you need to listen to this part, when he got to the pro team he was on, that was nothing new for him. Why? Why was that not new for him? He did it. That's his 3rd time through. He already did that for 4 years straight and then 4 years again. That was nothing new to him. That was not at all a shock or an intimidation to him whatsoever. He had proved to himself that he could do the same exact thing all over again. Who's this player? Does anybody know who I'm talking about? Tom Brady, yeah. And who's Tom Brady? He's considered the best football player of all time. Okay, so we just took the best basketball player of all time. We just took the best football player of all time. And they probably faced the most failure of all time throughout their journey going up to it, right? So this myth that the person who fails the least will have the best, most success, it's a 100% fallacy myth, absolutely not true. Makes sense? But, we go through our day, we watch on TV, we see these people of all sports. They're so talented, right? They're the fastest, the strongest, the biggest, the most skilled. And we think, God gave them some ability, a lot of ability that they were just supposed to be there. It's really not the case. It's up to what you do inside with you. I can tell you there are a million more players that I played with personally that were really, really talented that didn't go far or get there compared to the ones that did and utilize other things, other intangible things other than talent and skill, right? Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. You guys have probably heard that before, right? And so I want to touch on that with I don't even think anything else needs to be said about fear of failure if you think about those lessons and really apply them. And I hope it's powerful for you to hear because that's just a real life story. That's not even me giving you my opinion. That's factual things that have happened, right? And look, for me more than anyone too, that proved to me as an athlete growing up, seeing those guys and what they've gone through, that there's nothing you can't do if you put your mind to it, right? And then the roadblocks we have are that's the story we tell ourselves. It's not the reality. Right? It's the story you tell yourselves that you can't do something, not the reality. So, all right, I want to shift into the last one here, which is life after sports. Anybody have any questions so far, or any thoughts, comments, really anything at all? That makes sense? Okay, cool. Carol, we good too so far? All right, cool. All right, so life after sports. Here's the biggest thing as a college athlete that you probably don't understand now today, but you will the next couple of years, seniors especially. Everything that you have done over the last 4 years, or no matter what year you are now, will do over these 4 years, is molding a character within you, is developing routines and habits that are instilled within you that will, I'm telling you, take over what goes forward without even your control as much as you think. Okay? Everything you do is molding a character, is molding a habit, molding a routine for what's set going forward. And I'm hopeful for everyone here today because I'm of the belief, especially as an athlete, that you guys are primed and ready 10 times more than a non-athlete in college. Okay? Because when you guys are a college athlete, you are going through a routine that's a full-time job, is what it really is. With school and being able to stay on top of your studies, and with your sport and how much you have to go to practice and do games, you guys all know here, your schedule is not real free, am I right? Your schedule's not real free. You're busy. You guys have a full-time job with how much hours that you're putting into. Okay, it's equivalent to a 40-hour job, maybe even more, to be honest, right? And so, yeah, it's a grind. Yeah, there's going to be times where you're thinking, man, I wish I could just have 1 week off and be just a student and not a student athlete. Maybe go to a couple more parties, maybe just hang out with friends more, maybe have more leisure time, maybe whatever it is, right? And I get that. And you're going to have times to do that too throughout the year. We just forget about it, right? For example, let's say when summer hits or whatever it is. But on the other end of that, that grind of you getting used to that, accustomed to that, when you're done with school and you go into the real world, you're 10 times more primed and ready to have a successful career going forward because of that lifestyle. If you are staying true to that lifestyle and actually putting in the work, committing. Makes sense? And when I zoom out and compare the two people, this is a student over here. Well, this isn't the case for everybody. I'm sure it's the case for a lot of them. Maybe they go to class half the time. Maybe they're getting drunk half the time. Maybe they are, over a whole week spending 5 hours or less on school. They are just getting by. They are going to pass with maybe C's and get their degree that you guys will have as well. But outside of their resume, there's no way they're ready to succeed their first couple levels of their career. Those first couple levels of your career are the deciding factor to what your end future will be like. Because you're creating a lane, right? If you get in with a company and you start proving that you're capable, okay, and you bring value to your company, and I'm a coach and I'm a director of a travel organization where we have 12 baseball teams and 6 softball teams we help out as well. And when I bring on a coach, the very first thing I'm asking myself is, what value does this person bring to my team? It's the very first question I ask myself. If they don't bring any value, I don't really want you. Why would I? Doesn't mean you're a bad person, but you've got to bring some value, right? You got to show up on time. You got to be able to provide something that provides an experience for my players that helps get them better, right? Because that's what, that's what's going to separate my company, the company you work for, all of us, my team, from the other teams. And again, like I have the same mindset that I did as a player. I'm here to compete. I'm here to compete as a coach. I want to build a program up that's way better than everyone else because I provide more value. I provide a better experience. I provide more development. When your player comes to me, I'm going to make sure that they get to up here at the fastest route possible. Because like that's my mentality. And when you guys go and interview for a company and maybe a manager's in front of you, that's probably their mentality with their company too. They're trying to compete with all these other companies. So if they don't bring on people that bring in more value to their company, why would they want you, right? They need somebody that's going to bring value to their company. And I think a lot of you guys at your age, I know I probably did too, you're thinking like, all right, I just want to do my job. I just want to make sure I'm not messing up. I want to make sure I'm just showing up on time, doing what this guy asked me to do. And again, it is the same exact thing as an athlete. You've got to think differently. You got to think a little outside the box. You got to provide something additional to succeed and compete. So when you do an interview one day, if you just do an interview that answers all the questions the right way, but don't bring anything additional, don't provide any different kind of character that you show that you have. Maybe you bring some enthusiasm that they saw with your interview compared to what they didn't see from the other 9 candidates, right? Something different, something of more value that can help them. That's what matters, right? And again, what you're doing here is molding a character within you to set you up for that so that you go and propel more forward or not. And my opinion is that out of 10 people, there's probably 7 of the 10 that are just in the middle of the pack. Again, that doesn't mean you're a bad person, but you're kind of just going through the routines of doing what everyone else does. You don't have that it factor or that edge. And where do you find that it factor or that edge? It's got to be within you of being true to who you are. Every person has a different it factor. Okay, like your strength. Everybody here has a unique strength. You have a unique ability. Every person, and they're all different. So you got to find out what that is, leverage that, along with being responsible and doing the things they're looking for. You combine that with your unique ability. You combine that with adding more value to this company. Who wouldn't want you? They're going to be dying to sign you on. They might even give you a signing bonus. They might pay you more than they pay that person typically because they know on the other end of it what it could produce for their company. So it's a different mentality. But again, just to rewind, everything that you're doing, if you want to get to that stage, it's got to all relate back to your habits, your routines, and what you do on a daily basis long term. All right? And so, but it's the same process. You go into an interview and you're nervous, guess what? You can use this same thing we talked about, pregame routine, into a pre-interview routine. Get yourself in a mental space where you feel loose, free, and aggressive, a little more comfortable to be in your own skin. Talk with some enthusiasm, right? Not worrying about saying the wrong thing. Because by the way, it's not about saying like the wrong thing. That's probably a couple things I said to you today, probably several that maybe grammatically were incorrect. Who cares? Nobody's looking at that stuff as much as you think. They're looking for what kind of value does this person bring to me? And do I think they're going to show up on time by the things that, by the vibe that I'm getting from them? Do I think they'll be accountable and responsible? Do I think they're educated enough to get started? Yeah, things like that matter, no doubt about it. Like just by the way you talk, you're already giving off a perception to your like education and accountability as a person, just to be honest with you. I'll give you a totally separate thing. This is nothing to do with what we're talking about directly, but everything indirectly. I own rental properties on the side, and so I vet tenants out if they want to move into one of our places. And when I talk with them on the phone, I know within the first 15 seconds if they'd be a good tenant or not. First 15 seconds. By their mood, their attitude, their verbiage, Or are they on the phone? They're just like, hello, yeah, what's it cost? Or are they, oh, hey, how's it going? Hey, yeah, thank you for the opportunity to maybe do a showing. Here's my resume. And like, what is the tone that they talk in? How do they speak? What kind of energy do they have? Like, do they have effort? Do they care to talk to you? Like, a lot of it just comes down to like being a solid individual, to be honest with you. Really does. Do you care for the other person as opposed to just caring about yourself? Right. I think it was Zig Ziglar. He had a really good quote. I don't know if anybody knows who that is. Just a good person, personal development. But if you want to figure out how to get exactly what you want, figure out a way for everyone else around you to also get exactly what they want. And it said it differently than I said it there, but that's the gist of it. If you want to figure out how to get everything that you want, how can you serve the people around you so that they can also get everything they want? Or provide something, some kind of value that is mutually beneficial. If it's mutually beneficial, guys, if it's a win-win, who's going to say no to you? Make sense? Who's going to say no to you? There's no agreement between two people that's a good agreement that's mutually beneficial. That's the same with a contract with a player and a team. That's the same with a manager trying to hire an employee. Right? I talked about, okay, if they hire them and pay them money and they get enough value in return from it to their company, it's a mutually beneficial agreement. It's the same with anything you're doing. It's the same with a relationship, husband and wife. It's the same with a friend, right? Mutually beneficial. When you have that perspective and approach, again, for me, like personally, it leads back to like tapping into your faith a little bit too. And like, what does this whole thing mean at the end of the day when we die? Like just being a solid individual and trying to be the best person you can be. I'm a big believer in like karma as well. I just think it pays tenfold dividends on the other end when you have good intentions behind it. Yeah. So we kind of like bounce around from one thing to the next. It might seem like maybe we went off topic. Believe it or not, we didn't. They are all interconnected. I promise. They're all linked together, one thing to the next. But the last thing is this: you can't have the mentality of just get through school and then my life starts, because then your life will start and you're not ready. You've got to become the person you want to be throughout your college journey so that when your career starts, you're ready. Okay, that's the mentality. Okay, because even when you get there to your first job, you won't be ready no matter how much you do. You'll never be able to be fully prepared until you actually get there, because it's going to be a different experience. But you can absolutely control the internal and become the person you want to be, the person you envision that would have a chance to be a reliable employee, have a chance to grow, have a chance to move up through a company, or maybe start your own company and do your own thing, whatever it is that you desire, right? Whatever field it is that you like, you've got to first become the person that you want to be throughout that process. And that takes time to develop. It does. Okay, so spend the time in these years now, whether you got 1 year left or 4 years left, to develop the person who will be as ready as they can be for that next phase. And it's a competitive industry, a competitive world out there, right? And so it's not easy to get not only a job, but the job that you want, right? So I'm telling you, if you can get at least somewhat of a path going forward. Nobody here is going to find the perfect job right away. I'll tell you that right now, I guarantee you. Nobody's going to find their dream job year one. It doesn't work like that. You have to move up the ladder, move up the ladder, move up the ladder. I'll finish on one last story. There's a guy named Dean Graziosi. I listen to his stuff. He's a personal development guy. He tells the story, so I'll just repeat what he said because it's really good. There's a comedian. He's one of the most famous comedians in the world, and he's speaking in front of hundreds of thousands of people, tens of thousands of people at a big arena. And somebody asked him, like, how did you get to that spot, right? How did you get to that spot to be in front of all these people? Because most people thought he was just naturally the funniest guy in the world. And he says, well, I started at just a local bar, and I gave 10 jokes. And all, of the 10 jokes, nobody laughed at any of the jokes except for one. And it was a horrible experience. I was absolutely terrible. And I left, and I was embarrassed. I went home, and I looked at my paper of my jokes, and I said, all right, I have 10 jokes. I have 9 that suck. But I had one that was actually, it did hit a little bit. They laughed at it. So I scribbled out all the 9, I threw them away, and I have one joke. And then I went and I did it again with 9 new jokes. So we did it with 9 new jokes, and it stunk again. But this time, they laughed at 2 of his jokes instead of 1. So he went back, he did it again, he threw out all the other 8. He says, all right, that was terrible, but at least I have 2 jokes that I know can hit. Goes back, does it again. And it's the same process where he one at a time found 1 joke each time that led his way, where he went from, okay, 2 of the 10 jokes landed, then 3 of the 10 jokes landed, then 4 of the 10 jokes landed. And then each time he got a little better, he got some invitations to some bigger restaurants, bigger arenas, bigger stages to talk at. And at some point, after going through that process, he had found 10 jokes that stuck. And he became the best in the world at those 10 jokes that then led him to become able to speak in front of tens of thousands of people. But it didn't start by being the funniest person or having everything that was a success right away. Talked about the failure stories as well, earlier. It's the same thing. It's that 1 joke, throw the rest out. Okay, now another one works, throw the rest out. You're constantly trial and error, figuring out how to tweak, mold, and improve who you are. Same as an athlete. You're doing this now with your technique and form. You're doing this now with your performances. Same as a person when you're done playing sports. So I'll finish it up with that. And if anyone has any, open up for any questions. If anybody has any or thoughts, comments, anything at all, if I can help you out with. But does anybody have any? Yeah.
How long did it take you to it's hard to talk about it.
Yeah. I appreciate it. It's a great question. How long did it take? So I started a program, which Carol's grandson did years ago. And actually, even before that, I started it probably 7 years ago, where I would talk one-on-one with people about these things. But I'll be honest with you, the things that I'm telling you now, like at this stage, I wasn't telling them those same things. Maybe it was a version of it that was less impactful, the same purpose and idea. But I just constantly kind of figure out as I'm going. Like I told you the story of the jokes. Guess what? That's why I have my video out. I'm going to take this video. I'm going to go home and watch it all, and I'm going to look at what I liked that I said, what I didn't like. I'll take my couple jokes or things that I said that I felt were impactful. I'll keep those. I'll scratch the ones that weren't as impactful, and I'll do it again. So that's been my process right now of me doing that. I have not been doing it as long as you think, believe it or not. So that's encouraging for you guys. 32 years old today. I'll be 33 this summer. This is my 4th time speaking to W&J in classroom setting like this. I've spoken at Waynesburg College. One time I spoke in front of 150 athletes, all their athletes, and that was probably the biggest stage I spoke in front of. Did that actually last fall. Spoke to their softball and baseball team maybe a couple weeks ago. And I speak to people who do my program in small group settings, maybe between 20, 25 people. But I don't really think about it. I like doing it. It's like a passion of mine. And so when you guys can, maybe that's a good lesson for you guys, when you can find something that's a passion of yours and you kind of you get lost in the process of it and look back and say, oh, I did this for 10 years or however long it is, then it's the easiest way to get to where you want to go. It's really hard, I think, to get somewhere that you're like striving to get to, but you don't really enjoy it, because you're going to look back and say, I've been doing this for 2 years and it's felt like 10. Where for me, I've been doing this for 10 years and it's felt like 2, right? So it's not by design. I didn't set out and think I could articulate it this way. I'll give you a really good case in point. The first time I came to talk, I had my little paper here of notes. I had to keep checking back on it and make sure I was saying the right thing or saying what I wanted to say. And now I just talk. So it's a gradual process and it takes time to develop. I don't even have a clear answer though. It's just, you guys will do the same thing. If you find something that, yeah.
You've always done a good job that you nailed it today. This was the best presentation.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And I have the same question with Addie, because out of all the years I've done it, I always struggle with retention. So I have to use notes because I change up.
Mm-hmm.
Just the flow and everything you do was fabulous. Really.
Oh, I appreciate it. I guess the last thing I can say is this: it's just like nothing is going to feel natural. Like, for example, I told you I'm passionate about this, and I am, but it doesn't mean it was natural right away. Nothing is natural till you put enough reps into it. I'm a firm believer in that, in anything that you're doing. Does that make sense? Nothing is going to be natural until you put enough reps into it. You drive a car for the first time, it's the same thing, right? You're driving your car, and you're like, you have no idea. You're like, where's this lane or this lane? I don't want to hit into that car. And now, does anyone here who drives even think about any of that, right? It's just muscle memory. So it's the same thing. You got to put enough reps into what you're doing. You got to have enough resilience to forget about how fast your progress goes, if it's successful or not. Like forget about the stats, forget about your scores, forget about that in the beginning stages, and just keep developing. Just keep getting reps. Reps are invaluable. Yeah. Anybody, any other thoughts or questions? So the three things, try to apply the mental space, get yourself in a new mental space pre-routine, use the tools of the things you do that help you, but it's not about those things. It's about this mental space you get into. Yeah. And we talked about failure, obviously, give you the stories, talked about the importance of what you're doing now today, even though you didn't, and I didn't think I went to play baseball and I came back and got my degree when got released. I was done playing and got my, degree. I went to Cal U for 1 year and went to WVU for 3 years and graduated. My senior year of college, I was just like, man, I cannot wait to graduate. Like, I'm kind of over the college scene, like just wanted to graduate, move on with my career, and like felt like I was just killing time till I got there. But if I like look back and realize like, oh, those habits and everything I was doing, like I could have been doing that stuff right now today. I was capable of those things. You just don't realize it till later on. But the who you are, the things you do with your habits every day are molding a character within you. So, anything else, Carol, you think?
No, I mean, the one story that I don't know if you want to share is when you got released.
Sure. Yeah, I can tell it.
That was rough because for so many teams in here, like you said, it's like the stock market, they go up and down.
Yeah.
They themselves and how you brought yourself out of that adversity.
Yeah. Yeah, and it wasn't, so like, I'll tell it quickly. So I got released. Well, you find out you get released, you show up to the locker room in the beginning of, like in the morning, it was spring training, and like literally they just take your stuff out of your locker, take your name tag out of your nameplate on your locker. That's how you find out you get released. Like, so that's like your first, okay, now I'm released. So then you figure that out, and you see enough guys get released. It happens every day. Guys will get released in spring training. Back when I played, there was 50 rounds of the draft. So that means that 50 new guys come in every year, 50 are getting let go because they got to keep the same amount of guys on the whole roster. And so, yeah, you show up, like here's my locker. Literally, it's just totally cleaned out. You go down the hallway, you go to the room where the clubby packs up your stuff, packs up your bag, and then you get your bag, and then you go into the meeting room with the higher up people that made a decision. They give you an exit meeting. So you do that, and like I left that meeting. Hey, here's your plane flight. They already booked the plane flight the day before I got released. They knew. So do that. Got released, and I told you at the beginning, my goal was to be a major leaguer. It didn't happen for me. So yeah, I probably had about a week of like depression where I was just not wanting to do anything at all. Probably played like video games for 7 days straight. And I told the last group about that. I was just like, it was like, okay, now what's my next purpose in life? Because this isn't it at this point in time. So life's gonna hit you hard sometimes. You're gonna go through that, but man, like God always opens up a new door for you going forward. That when you look back on, like for me, it's like, man, like I wouldn't have it any other way now. Like actually, I'm glad I don't have to play 162 games of baseball a year. Would I like to be making millions of dollars? Heck yeah, but that's not the most important thing at the end of the day. Right, so would I have met my wife if I didn't get released? No. Would I have my 2 daughters now? Probably not at this stage in life. So like everything happens for a reason. But that's kind of my story of getting released. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks guys for having me.
Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
absolutely. Yeah.